Oh, we working. We are going live today with the one and only Allison Paige. And for those of you that have followed me for a while, know that this is my sis star and I love her to death. She has a lot of value to add. And so we're going to talk about 2020, what we learned most from then, and how we plan to progress into 2021. We learned a lot in 2020. If you didn't learn in 2020, you missed out. You missed a great opportunity to learn a lot. And so we're going to talk about 2020 and how it impacted us moving forward. Y'all know I love Allison, so I'm getting lit. Oh, what's up, girl?
What is up?
What's good, Ellie? I see you. Man, how are you doing, Allison Paige?
Yes, here live 2021.
It is a new
Amazing.
year. It's a new year.
Indeed.
How does it feel?
Indeed. It feels amazing, to
Yeah,
be honest. It does.
good.
Just it's being on the other side, but I'm grateful for 2020.
Good. Well, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about 2020, how it impacted us, what we learned, all the things that we feel the new norms are going to be, what adjustments we
Hmm.
had to make. And so, just for the people who didn't see you on live last time, everybody
Yeah.
needs to know that this is my sis Star. She really gave me my first shot at marketing at a major agency. And we really just connected on a different level. She took me under her wing. She didn't leave nothing out, and I'll forever be indebted to you for the way that you took me under and just taught me everything. So, with that said, let's talk about 2020 and what we learned.
Yeah.
So, 2020 was a year that we will never forget. It'll be a year that we talk to our kids about, our families about
Yeah.
in the future, our grandkids, and like y'all think that's bad. You should have seen 2020. And
This
so
pandemic though.
okay. I mean, it had everything. It had a pandemic. It had social injustice. It had,
Man.
every bit of the stresses on businesses, families. So, what did you learn most about 2020 or from 2020 that you're going to take into the rest of your life?
Sure. Well, for me, each year I choose a word that I hold on to for the whole year.
Mm.
And I usually just pray about it. Sometimes I'll get jewelry made with on it so it stays top of mind. And the word that I had for last year in January, pre-COVID, well, pre-pandemic, was shift.
Mm.
And it's always interesting to reflect back on the previous year and see how that word kind of carries you through.
Mm.
But the word was shift. And I think that is truly what I learned in 2020. The ability to shift. Your plans are not your own. And I
Mm.
think a lot of us learned that what we think we had control over in our lives, what we think we thought we could do with nobody's help,
Mm-hmm.
um, for those of us who did not have a plan B because we just felt like we had it like that,
Right.
I think 2020 humbled us in a way to learn to release control. And
Mm.
it did. And I mean, for me, that was a big lesson because I'm a detailed person. I love Outlook invites. I love objectives in the invite. I like to know what's going on. And I mean, even in my faith, that's something that I had to learn to like release. Like, Allison, you don't have control. And it's okay to release that. There's peace in that. So for me, that's what I learned the most out of 2020 is just to be open to the shift.
I love that. I love that. And you talk about almost that false sense of security that you
Mm,
feel. And I don't, I've kind of, my mindset shift in 2020 was away from feeling that everybody has to be an entrepreneur and really just everybody needs
with
to have
you.
a growth mindset. And I think that,
Yes.
because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm watching them going, you shouldn't have been in this position in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of that just goes to show you like you don't have that control that you thought you had. You don't have that security that you thought you had. And in my notes I put putting yourself in position to control at least one or two streams of income
Mm-hmm,
is
mm-hmm.
what I learned, is detrimental to your livelihood. And so talk a little bit about 2020 and how it shaped your focus on mental and physical health as well. How important is mental health now in comparison to what it was before 2020?
Absolutely. Well, it's always important. I think on our last call, we talked about the importance of just taking care of your health mentally and your body physically. What 2020, I think, charged people with is the discipline to do it
Mm.
because you were left to your own I don't know what the word is vices, but nope, some of us didn't have a gym. I know here in Illinois, like gyms were closed. If you were seeing a therapist, it was like teledoc, so you didn't have that like, in-person presence.
Right.
And the reality is it was true. You're disciplined to find a way to work out, to find a way to make sure that you have a routine, to implement boundaries. I mean, like, that's real. And to make sure that you are doing the necessary things to stay healthy. And it has to be on your own, because we didn't have the luxury of going out, being with people, seeing people. So reading books, all of that, kind of to wrap up in your question, is what 2020 taught us is that, yes, it's important, because a lot of us were denied a human need, which is,
right.
Physical presence, hugs, being with family. And that is going to wear and tear on everybody. Right. I'm just going to be honest. Like, I don't think anyone should be so haughty as to feel like, yeah, I did it, and I went through 2020 without anything. It's okay to feel like 2020 wore me out a little bit. Holidays were different. Work and working with people is different. And so just making sure that, at least for me, but I would encourage people to sharpen yourself to make sure that you have the ability to have the discipline to do what you need to do. You have to get up and you have to find ways to lift weights. You might have to purchase them because you can't rely on the gym. You have to say, hey, I know I'm working from home and we lost that commute time to work, but I'm not going to take a meeting at 8 o'clock.
That's right.
Because I wasn't doing it before. That was a commute time.
Right.
And we're not going to literally plan a meeting at 6:30 because, y'all are just at home. No, that's a family time. That's right. Even for me, I used to shut the door to my office and my house and say, like, when I leave, I shut the door because I'm no longer at this work, and I keep my kitchen, my bedroom, my living room. That's sacred. I don't bring PowerPoint presentations into this space. So I think it's really learning to set boundaries and really amplify your discipline, because no one is there to make you do anything. You have to do it.
That's awesome. I love the fact that you're talking about setting those boundaries, because when you work from home, you can really cross a lot of those boundaries by accident and not even really know that you're crossing them. And so I think it's important that you talk about shutting off that area and being like, that's where I work. Correct. This is where I do family, or this is where I do personal, and being able to still have those parameters around. I don't meet at 8. I meet at 8:30, 9 o'clock when we start, and I finish at 6. Just having the same boundaries that in person had. I also think that 2020 for me showed me the very big need of having the right circle around you, the right people around you that have the proper mindset amidst craziness. And so I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about how people react to stress. I learned a lot about how people react to other people being in distress. And so what do you feel about, your circle, people, and how they shape their circles, how important that is to your growth mindset?
That's so interesting that you brought that up. I say that because, you need to make sure that you surround yourself with people who are speaking life into you, that are encouraging you, and kind of still going in that boundary lane. Speak life to you, encourage you, and pour into you. Because a lot of us, some of us, tend to pour a lot into people, into our work, into our family. And you have to assess, am I getting refilled? And it's not people's fault. It's our job to own our boundaries. But sometimes you have to look and say, like, hey, in this relationship, I'm not getting refilled. Or I listen to you talk all about your problems. And then I'm like, I had a bad day too. And you're like, okay, girl, well, I'll talk to you later. And I'm like, so are you? So my problems don't matter. And I had to assess a lot of that in 2020 by default. But what I thought was interesting about that is not only do you have to be intentional in your circle, but you also, it's okay to speak that you need time away from people and to yourself. And I had to learn that last year. I have people that I love. And I was like, and I didn't want to be that person that was like, she's not answering the call, she's not returning a text. And if anybody's on here that was you, I apologize. But even more recently, I had to start saying like, hey, it's not you, girl. I've been needing some time to just rethink and focus. So I'm kind of off the grid for the next 2 weeks. And obviously I'm giving it in so people know that I'm just not being shady. Right. But it is imperative and okay, like no shame attached, to acknowledge when you just need time with family, Like, I love y'all. I need at least an hour. I do.
Right.
With friends, with work, and that actually is a sign of strength. I think a lot of us think we're stronger and capable when we can do it all. And really, you're burning out, and your output shows it. It is more strength to say, I need this time to think, to recharge with just me. Like, love you, but I do need this time for just me.
And I love that, because there's strength in discipline. I mean, it takes a lot of strength to remain disciplined. And I think a lot of us have a giving heart or the desire to say yes. And actually, one of my major goals in 2021 is to say yes when I want to say yes, and say no when I want to say no. There's no gray area. I either wanted to do it or I did not. And I think it's important that people take care of themselves before they start taking care of everybody else. I mean, how can you really pour into everybody else when you haven't poured into yourself? And so one of the things that I find extremely important in my circle is just the way that they speak. You know, do you have a positive tone? You know, no matter what's going on, do you have a positive tone? Do you have a listening ear? And the understanding that I may not be coming to you to solve my problems. I may just be coming to you to talk. I just need to talk. And in talking, I will figure out myself. I am strong. I have a lot of strength. And so I love that about the way that you kind of said that.
I have to add full vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because this is letting people inside our relationship.
Absolutely.
You absolutely taught me that. I remember we were at some work event, and you had said something, and I was like, oh, well, we could do this, and you were like, I just needed to speak, not to solve. and I say that because that stayed with me. That had to be, I don't know, it's 2021. Okay, so that had to be maybe 8 years ago.
Right.
That stuck with me to learn, like, hey, sometimes you're in a position to listen and not to respond, and even in your good intentions to help and support, wait for that to be asked for, or ask if that's what they're looking for. And when you're, to your point, when you're picking people in your circle, make sure that they're aware of that.
Right. You think you know everything. I mean, and as the friend who gave the advice, you're like, well, damn, I was just trying to be helpful, you know, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to read your friends and know your circle. So you talk about a lot of the things that we had to shift, and that's your word for, you know, the way you look back at 2020. We had to shift a lot of things. And so in those shifts, we may have some new norms. And so what do you believe are the top 3 new norms that we're going to have in 2021 because of 2020?
Sure. So I think that one of them we just talked about, it's intentional connection. I think before we just were hanging out with everybody every time, all the time. And then so there's that group. And then you had another group that was like, I'm not hanging around nobody. I'm tired. I'm good with myself. And I think 2020 made everybody step out their comfort zone. Folks that were normally like, I love being by myself, were like, actually, I could use some company. And I think people who were like, I'm so used to being out, were like, oh my gosh, I'm inside.
That was me all day. I was the one who was introverted and like, I kind of want to go to a restaurant or something.
Say hi to somebody in person. You have to like touch. But but yes, so intentional connection. And making sure that, like, if we can't be in person, then how can I make something special? I know for birthdays, a lot of us went on Zoom, and it was cute the first 4 months. And then it was like, and we just had this Zoom fatigue and screen fatigue. And we probably still have it. Right. But then for me, I was like, wow, I think this year I'm going to send this person a card. I want to be intentional so they know they're special. Because I know that they're over there by themselves. And we can pretend it's fun and that everybody's coping through this the same. But those who are spending holidays, birthdays by themselves, you might want to pick up the phone. Like, pick up the phone, send something, be intentional with it, because we all need a little bit more of that connection that feels real versus before when we just did it not putting thought to it.
Ooh, so that one gave me chills. That was a good one.
No, I mean, it's true. It's true. Then I think it taught us discipline. We talked about that too. Discipline in the fact that if the world stops, you have to find a way to keep going. So hopefully people didn't just say, like, 2020 went by. Now, I'm not one of those people who say, like, I hope you come out of this pandemic with 8 businesses. Like, hold on, because we have to deal. Folks lost family. Folks had health issues. Right. I mean, so let's give grace where grace is due. But I also learned that, like, we can't still be on complete pause. 2020 was a time of reflection. It was a time to think about, what can I do when the world is shut off? How can I still be on? How can I still be healthy? Maybe I need to get out and walk before we never walk anywhere. You know, we drive to point A to point B. Discipline to say, like, I could sit here and watch 17,000 Netflix binge episodes, or I can take the time and say, hey, I'm going to read this book. It could be a book about what I'm going through. It could be a book, a fantasy to take me out of what's happening in real life. It could be a book that helping me sharpen what's going on in this political landscape or injustice landscape. So being disciplined and purposeful, like, you have to do that in this new norm. And I hope people carry that beyond, because this is, to your point, a new normal. We're not going to go completely back. I think as a quick bunny trail, I do think it's important to realize, I think in the beginning of the pandemic, we were like, oh, we're going to go home for 2 weeks and then we're going to go back. Through this grieving process of like, no, this is life now. This is what we're doing. And so now we should be in this stage of, this is the new normal. How do I cope? What does connection look like? What does working out look like? What does work look like? So be disciplined in that to make things still happen in this new space. I love it. And then I think one thing that we have to take moving forward is being comfortable in who we are. And I say because, again, we had a lot of vices pre-pandemic to hide behind who we were. Like, if we were lonely, we just called up friends. If we were insecure about things, we just covered it up and kept going. 2020 made us feel like this is you by yourself. Like,
seriously,
whatever we thought was fun to cover up behind friends, behind, certain work dynamics, behind titles and stuff, we were left with just us. A lot of us could have been stripped from things that we stood behind, family members, whatever. So I think the final thing that we have to understand and take with us moving forward is learn who you are and be completely comfortable with who that person is.
I love it. And I actually equate that last one to self-awareness, being aware of the things that make you comfortable, the things that make you uncomfortable, and how you adjust to that discomfort. And so how do you suggest that people get to know themselves? I think, 2020 kind of forcefully made you get to know yourself, but how can you delicately and genuinely get to know yourself?
Yeah. So not to make it a deep science, we do this in every other relationship, specifically like dating, right? You spend time with the person. And a lot of us don't like spending time with ourselves. We label it lonely. We label it alone. And a lot of us hide in relationships, friendships, familial relationships, to hide from being alone with ourselves. So the first thing is, spend time with you. Spend time. Be comfortable in that awkward quietness. It's completely okay because you got somewhere, in that self-awareness vein, whether you do self-help, whether you do therapy, be okay with saying, hey, this isn't the best part of me, and I could stand to see myself differently. Whether you have people that you trust, that maybe you have a theme that, like, you keep hearing people say. I had that moment last year. Like, I heard it from, like, work people. It wasn't a bad thing, but then it would be friends. And it wasn't people telling me about me. It just, I heard it. And so saying, like, oh, this is a theme. So how can I on that? What can I do? And then address it, and then seek ways to better yourself in that, whether that is a book, whether that is therapy, whether that is talking with someone through. And then also deal with unresolved issues, trauma, things that you grew up with, things that people could have spoken over you that you carried, and really that was them. That's not attached to you. Right. A lot of us are holding on to traumatic experience, words that someone we cared about said over us, failures that we might have had, and we are just stuck. Like, we're technically moving forward, but our minds and our souls are stuck in whatever that situation or words had. And so we have to really, let that go. You identify you, not another person. And if you don't like something about what they said and you want to fix it, then fix it. And if there's something that said that you didn't feel in your soul was true about you, then move it on. That is their opinion. That is not defining who you are.
That's right.
So that is a key thing to self-awareness. And it's okay. Again, going back to what I said earlier, vulnerability and self-awareness are a sign of strength.
Absolutely.
Hiding behind coverings, hiding behind a facade on social media or to your family and being miserable, like literally going to family events, you know, preparing yourself to be like, oh, this is this, and then driving home, like, that's not even me. That's you know in your soul, it's just miserable to be who you're not. And you will find that it may seem weird at first, but then the respect that follows for yourself and other people, and you living in your truth, outweighs anything that, you know, in any way you feel you have to be to gain love from family, friends, whoever. And I stress that because it's the close relationships that hurt the most. Like,
Absolutely.
right? Like, and that's why I say, like, if you need a boundary, if you need a moment to say, like, I can't go to this family function today or next week, quite as a step, it's okay. It's okay, because you overly pushing yourself to live out a life that's not yours is not your boundaries. That's letting other people define that. So I think that's what we have to do to remain self-aware, to be the best of ourselves. And no matter what, the people who love you the most will appreciate your authentic you.
It's almost like you're talking about protecting your energy. And at the end of the day, you are responsible for the energy that is around you. You're responsible for the energy that you manifest. You're responsible for protecting all of that and creating boundaries that allow you to stay in that positive grind energy that you want to be in, and not let anybody or anything deter you from that positivity that you know you should have, and just that natural universe, you know, feel. I mean, there is a natural flow that you
purpose,
have.
Right? Like, you were put on this earth to do something, so get that done. Don't let other people define what they think you should be doing. So you protect your purpose. You know what that is. Nobody else. So protect that.
I love that. I love the thought of, you know, you are responsible for shaping you, period. But everybody will tell you what you should be doing, what you should not be doing. And I think that there's a select amount of people that you internalize what they said, but you still make the decision on how you adjust or not. And so I think we have to identify those people that we hold so close to our heart that they really can impact us without us even thinking about it. Like, oh, they said this, so it must be where I have to. And it's like, no. And everybody knows my dad is my best friend. My dad is my rock. He's always been, and people from high school, I know Book is in here. I know some other people from high school are in here. They know that my dad is like the core of, you know, the foundation of who I am. And it took a big for me to start to internalize what he said and not necessarily always do it. And so everybody's got that person or those two people that really impact them. And so I would challenge everybody to hear those people, tell them that you respect them, internalize it, but make it clear that your decision about you is yours. With that said, you talked a little bit about social injustice, and this is where I want the interaction from everybody. Book, LRK, anybody that's in here. Social injustice. I see them. Hey, I see them pages in here. Shoot, a couple pages out of your book. I see them. I think that this year, 2020, 2021's already had a little episode of just social unrest, and not just necessarily social injustice, but just social unrest in general. How has social injustice impacted you so far? You know, what we experienced in 2020, how did it make you feel? How did that kind of impact the way you talk about intentional connections, discipline, being comfortable with yourself? How did it shift you kind of experiencing what we experienced in 2020 as a strong Black woman? I mean, how does that feel?
Well, I was sitting there like, well, welcome, finally, because none of that was new for a lot of us. Right. You know, I think a lot of it was brought to light. It was an awakening for a lot of other people outside of the Black, Indigenous, people of color group. So it was actually it's a delicately held tension of, like, for some of us, this was just another incident, not from a weight perspective. It was important, but the way it was being treated, like on jobs, and saying like, oh my gosh, do you need time off? And kind of feeling a little ostracized, like, and feeling exhausted. You know, there were times when I was like, I just, you know, sometimes you're chosen to be like, can you be the one to speak on this? Can you do this? And feeling a responsibility, but also feeling exhausted. And where does that meet? You know, like, okay, I feel like it should be my job to speak, but I'm also exhausted. The there's also a feeling of hope that you have that things will get better. And then again, an exhaustion of seeing the same things we play over and over. But what I do think that is really important that came out of what happened in 2020, what happened last week, is that the time for just speaking on these things is over. People are demanding action, clear action, not even action like I go to your webpage and then it's a blackout screen that says Black Lives Matter, and then you click the X and then it's like, still, do you want to buy these shoes? Because that's not cute.
Right.
Like, okay,
that's transactional almost. That's transactional. Right.
Correct. And now people are like, no, I'm going to go to the About You and see who's in your leadership and do they look like me? I want to see the data. You say you care about me. Are you hiring people like me? I think one of the major banking companies made the statement that, we just can't find good Black talent. And they got chopped up for it. Because what's happening is we are asking to see what you're going to do. What you say does not matter anymore. Literally, to a lot of people, it's like we emoji shrug, like, that's for you. Right. But I want to see people getting promoted. I want to see people getting hired. There are more qualified people than you can count. We want to see, that all was happening last summer. We're getting ready to head into this new year. So how many of y'all are still doing things, or how many of y'all just did it for that 90 days to stay in the sexiness that it
trying to be relevant during a wave. And I would challenge anybody that's listening right now. I would love to hear from you all of some brands that you feel reacted properly to the social injustice, some brands that we should respect because of the way they handled it. And I know, Allison, you have a couple that you respect after seeing their reaction to the social injustice. What are maybe one or two brands that you have a new respect for? And then maybe on the flip side of that, some that you lost some respect for that you didn't, expect to.
Sure. Well, I'm going to start by saying brands that I respected didn't post for this event. They had this position years before 2020 happened.
There we go.
Brands like Nike, brands like McDonald's, with the Black McDonald's Operator Association specifically. Nike was already doing mass strategic work with Colin Kaepernick, buying up all the ad space. Like, y'all gonna kick him off the team, but you will see him in this commercial. Brands like, I believe, Ben and Jerry, when I look at their past campaigns, they were already super aware and woke and not afraid to say what needs to be said. Those are brands that I feel were ready, so they didn't have to get ready. We saw a lot of brands scramble to put out something, to partner with a Black talent figure to put on their website, or to put as a PR, like, oh, look, we partnered with so-and-so as our D&I expert. The brands I named were doing this 5, 10, 15 years ago when it wasn't a thing. And I respect that because I know that it's genuine. And that is a lesson to all of us. Like, you stay ready so you don't have to get ready. For the sake of where your brand is going and my brand is going, I'm not going to say who did it wrong. I'm going to hope that they get it together.
Right.
And you know who you are. You know that if you took down your woke pages after it wasn't hype, you know that if you blacked out your social media account and you posted nothing since then, you know who you are.
Right.
And you know that if you put a person of color's face on your brand for that one time, and then but you didn't hire any to make these decisions to help prevent you from making another mistake.
That's right.
You know who you are. People know where they work. People know it's like, I don't see not one person of color in the C-suite. Not one. That's the issue. In 2021, it's an issue. So I think those know. I think that those know who aren't doing it right. I charge and employ them to not treat diversity, equity, and inclusion as a subsidiary or a funding to do on the side. That should be a part of your strategic plan, because just from a marketing perspective, one knowing that we have are people are unforgiving. You have one time to massively disrespect them, and it's a wrap. I will say one brand who knew this, like I'll say Papa John's, and I'll say that because they were upfront with themselves.
And they've been there before. They had social injustice even within, or racial issues within their organization for years.
and they lost their leadership. They had to rebrand. They had to support their franchisees of color a lot more and put them at the forefront. And since then, I will say that a lot of their marketing strategy seems to be leaning more into the equity, not just the diversity, the equity part of a change, and the inclusion. So, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. You can't hide behind what once was. And at this point, I'm gonna just be 100, speaking for Allison herself, that any brand moving forward that finds themselves in those compromising situations on the wrong side of injustice, shame on you, because if that means you didn't utilize 2020 to learn anything.
Right.
I mean, you didn't leverage the past 500 years, but you definitely didn't leverage 2020.
Right.
So,
right. Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you know what? I think one of the biggest things that I learned was how brands, or just how people, associate social injustice with politics. And I'm like, they're separate. They're separate. You know, right is right, wrong is wrong. It has nothing to do with politics. And having to talk some of my corporate clients through that, like, I had a corporate client that'll go, well, not to be too political, but you know, Black Lives Matter. I was, oh, pause.
no,
I thought you said political. I thought you said
like the sky is blue and black.
That's right. And so just the understanding and really the mindset shift for people that aren't people of color, to understand that we people of color are not looking at social injustice as a political statement. It is not a political movement. It is a civil rights move. It is a rights movement. It's a way we're being treated movement. It's an equity movement, you know. And so I think brands that really put themselves in position to think the right way about what social injustice is as a subject, the category it fits in, would really help that C-suite, and having somebody of color in the C-suite would absolutely help as well. So with that said, 2020 was obviously insane. It had a pandemic. It had the social injustice. You talk about all the things that you learned in 2020, the new norms. I think one thing that we all learned was that we have to be extremely grateful for what we have. I can imagine that a lot of people lost a lot of things in 2020, a lot of lost opportunities, lost jobs, lost family members, lost relationships. And so how important is it to you to live a grateful life, you know, knowing what you have, knowing what you don't have, you know, what you have access to, what you don't have access to? How do you feel about the importance of living just a grateful life?
So living a grateful life is foundational, and don't mean that in a cliche way. Sorry, blame that on 2020. But it's necessary. Gratefulness is one of your best resources and your best tools you have to combat a large percentage of the issues that you're going through. Gratefulness combats and destroys comparison, because when you are happy with what you've been blessed with the life that you're creating through that discipline and boundaries, and when you're comfortable with yourself, shout out to that pen at the bottom. But when you are happy in that and you're grateful for those things, you don't care what anybody else is doing. In fact, you can celebrate what other people are doing, because you know that their success isn't a threat to yours. Their blessings aren't a threat to yours. What they have is for them, and what you have is for you. Gratefulness combats jealousy, because it's the feeling of, why is that person always getting this? Always. That's just not fair. I want that. Well, no, look at what you have. You have a lot of things and a lot of privileges that other people don't. And sometimes I think it's a good practice, and I've done this before. It seems really tedious and weird, but just do it and don't tell nobody. But like, walk around your surroundings and like be thankful for what it is. Like, once I was like walking my house and I looked at pictures and I was like, I'm grateful that I have friends to put in these frames and for family. I'm grateful that I have lights in this house. I'm grateful that I have a refrigerator and that I can put something in it. I'm grateful that bills are paid so this light can come on. And it seems super tedious, but the reality is you're acknowledging that you have things to be grateful for. Live in your present, live in your portion, and be content with that. It's awesome. Gratefulness combats fear, the fear of lack. I mean, people live in a consistent space of lacking. So at one point, you have to stop and say, hey, what do I have? I know there are some journals and some practices where people say every day, write down 3 things that you're grateful for. Write down 5 things that you're grateful for. Yeah, do that. Because what you're telling yourself is this fear you have of lack, which is the breeding ground for jealousy and comparison. You're busting that wide open. Like, no, I'm good. I have what I need. I am content. What I don't have, I'm working hard for. And I'm grateful to have people in my life that can support me and help me in a time of need as I move forward to get what I want. And then finally, gratitude and gratefulness combats wastefulness. Because for those of us who are on the other side of having it all, or at least perceiving to have it all, there's things that are wasted. When you waste time, you're not grateful. You're not grateful. You're basically saying, like, I don't care about any of these little things. I can just let it go. It doesn't matter. It's being grateful that I have the time to spend with someone and be present with them, not on my phone, but be present. I'm grateful to spend this time working on this presentation because I have a place of employment. I'm grateful for this time that feels really weird because maybe I was let go from a job, but I'm grateful for this time to be able to really focus on what it is I want to do. What's my next space? I want to be intentional about it. I'm grateful for this time given because there's somebody that needs this time to organize.
Right.
Be grateful and not wasteful. So yeah, gratefulness is one of your key weapons that you need at all times. And you will be remiss to not be grateful. You will be remiss not to use that weapon against things that are combating yourself. When we talked earlier about being self-aware, a large part of that is being grateful in who you are and in your flaws and the parts where you just think you shining, all of that. Be grateful for that. You know, this is your story. You are on your timeline, not anybody else's. You are on your journey, not anybody else's. You have your current portion that will change. Some seasons that portion may seem lower, and sometimes you feel like it's so high, you're just giving it out. But be grateful for both seasons because that's when you appreciate the other. So definitely, ZaVious, gratefulness is massively key. It is one of the strongest things you have to continue with fortitude, ambition, and really just keep the motivation and the ability to keep going.
Ooh, that was strong. That was strong. I don't have anything to add to that. Like the fact that that gratitude is gives you the ability to kill envy, jealousy, comparison. It puts you in position to truly value the time that you get to spend with certain people, the things that we take for granted on a daily basis. I mean, you talk about the ability to turn on the lights, the ability to have a phone that works and internet. I mean, all of the little things that people lost in 2020. And so
listen. And I mean, be grateful for 2020.
Right.
2020 did a lot of good. 2020 took the blanket off a lot of stuff that was being covered 100%. Up. 2020 gave us 365 days that allowed us on this call to make it to 2021. Be grateful for that. Right. 2020 stretched us. It put us in a lot of uncomfortable positions. And that lets us know that at this very moment, everyone in this chat, you and I, we have made it 100% over our worst times in life. We have made it. Like literally, whatever is your worst times, you have shown that you can move past whatever has been your worst moment in life. You've made it past that. Be grateful for that. 2020 came, shout out. That's what's up. So now I know what 2020 looks like. I have the ability to get through 2020.
Right. So, be grateful for the strength to get through a year like that. And I think that just shows you that you should be grateful no matter where you are on this roller coaster. Correct. I mean, whether you're at the peak of the roller coaster, at the bottom of it, you should be grateful the entire journey. You have everything to be grateful for, whether it's, grateful for the peak that I'm in and the great things that I'm experiencing, the success I'm experiencing, or whether it's grateful for the lessons that I'm learning from the failures. And we all know that that's how you win. You fail your way to success. So be grateful amongst those failures.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I have on my last question, and really a shout out at the same time, but don't press snooze. I appreciate you for that because we were on your podcast, we were recording your podcast and I was just talking about my routine or the discipline that I had to wake up in the mornings and how important that routine is to me. And I said, don't press snooze. And you stopped in the middle of us talking and go, whoa. You need to write that down, pound, don't press snooze, whatever, because that's strong.
Put it on the shirt.
Put it on. I have it on the shirt. I wore it on Monday. Right. So, thank you for identifying the power of the statement, and because of that, we now have the Don't Press Snooze Mondays. I think that's going to be what becomes my podcast. So how important is it to you to maintain your morning routine or make sure that you are being disciplined as you set your alarm clock and wake up? And one thing that I mentioned on Monday was, when you set your alarm clock, you set it with the best of intent. You set it with the intent to wake up, take a shower, go get a workout in, get your kids ready on time, maybe eat a little breakfast, write down your goals for the day. Like when you set your alarm, you set it with the best of intent. And when you press that snooze button, you got that default 9 minutes. At 9 minutes turn into 18, turn 27, 36, and now you're scrambling. And in my opinion, the decision to wake up on time is the most important decision that we make every single day, because it starts us off either in control or out of control. And so how important is your morning routine to you, and how important is it to make that extremely important decision every morning?
Sure. I always think like it's a gift to wake up in the morning. It's my choice to put my feet on the ground and get moving, right? And so to your point, when you press snooze, all that good intention slowly, and you feel it like, ooh. Yeah. And what you do is when you press snooze, you start thinking of all the things you're not going to do.
That's
right. I guess I'm not going to cook breakfast. I guess I'm not going to work out. I guess I'm going to take a 3-minute shower. And we'll leave it at that. Right. And then you start thinking like, okay, I'm not going to send that meeting out. I was going to send that email out first thing in the morning. Okay, well, maybe if I get there at 9, I can still send it out before the 9:30, and then traffic happens and you don't get it out.
And this is all happening in that 9 minutes.
Oh, all of it. And you kind of sleep, but this whole process is in your head. Like you are literally pressing on your phone like all of this is not going to happen. Right. In fact, some of us can wake up and text our friends like, yeah, I ain't gonna be able to make that workout. Right. Like we have enough strength for that. But the reality is, the reason why I stopped you is because that is a concept. That's something we do in the morning. That's something we do in our life. Like we are just saying, I'll get to it.
That's right.
And that's not being grateful for the time that you've been given. Because nothing else is promised. This present moment is what you have to work with. And so for me, it's important to start the day off right, because it's showing yourself that you have the ability to get done what you said you were going to do. When you hit the ground and I'm telling you, first of all, you're going to get immediate satisfaction, albeit you may be tired, but you're going to get satisfaction with getting up and getting ready to go.
Right. That's a win. That's starting your day off with a win.
Correct. And so for me, I do like to go do a ride on like a Peloton and then come back. I like to get up and I like for it to be quiet because I can hear what I need. Like literally I can hear in my soul and in my mind like what I need. It's just a quiet time because most people press a snooze. And so like, okay, I can think about what I need to do through the day. If I need to send some additional emails in the morning just to start things off right, that's done. And it's really important to me because when I'm able to get up and get going, I feel accomplished. I feel like I've done more today. And I'm fully aware that if what I don't accomplish in the morning, I'm giving to the will of others. Because I know that when I go into the office, I can say, well, I'm going to work out and do this when I get home, but then something pops up. That's so like I'm doing PR. And I remember I had every intention of leaving at 4:30 when the event at the Capitol happened. And then I was working on my computer at 3, and then somebody's like, are we going to post something for what's going on at the Capitol? And I'm like, shoot, let me turn on the phone. And then I ended up going through a series of different types of posts. And then I had to drive home, and then I had to get back on and get those things kind of looked at from the powers that be. Long story longer, I didn't end that day to 8:30. So the will that I have, that my will was given to other people because of my job or kids or spouses or whatever, or traffic.
Right.
or current events
Mm-hmm.
at the Capitol, right? So what you do in the morning, you own that. So it's done. So you can stay late, but you worked out. You can leave late, but sometimes I use the morning to call people like my mama. It's a great
That's
time to
right.
call,
Mm-hmm.
quiet on the way, just say what's going on. But I've done everything that I needed to do so that I can be at peace with whatever life throws at me that day. I'm not mad at the world because they blew off my plan. No, but I did my plan. So now when things happen, I'm like, I'm good. I already did that. Yeah, I can stay a little bit late. I already worked out. Oh yeah, no, you can talk because I already talked to the people who are important to me. Like that, you own that, and that's super important to own that. And I think one thing I want to add to that, ZaVious, is that in order to not press snooze, that means you have to have good preparation the night before. So that goes back to the stay ready so you don't get ready. No, if you go to bed at 2 a.m. and you were ambitious with setting 6 a.m. on your alarm, not only is it not healthy, but you're going to press snooze.
That's right.
And that's your fault.
Right. No,
so if this is your agenda, then start to wind it down at 9:30 so you can be asleep at 10:30 so you can actually get up at 6. Because if there's no real preparation, then snooze is a default. So hopefully we all learn that, like, if you're setting out to get up, then make sure you're setting up to get your rest so that you can prepare to be up that early.
I love it. I love it. And even like I set my clothes out the day before.
That's all of that.
I'll go ahead and put coffee in the pot, like go ahead. I just need to get up, push a button, turn the, stove on. I think one thing that I would say to anybody that's listening about waking up in the morning is I don't touch my phone until I'm about to go work out, until I've had time to sit up, drink a glass of water and think about, what my day is about to look like. I think people have to be very intentional about what they consume when they wake up. And so, consuming social media is not what you need to be putting on your brain the moment you wake up. The first thing I listen to is Les Brown, and I listen to him while I'm working out. He's yelling in my ear, it's possible. And I'm like, well, shit, I guess it's possible, and all day I'm thinking, well, it's possible, and so I think in anybody's morning routine, whether you work out, whether you eat, whatever it is you have in your routine, I would challenge you to insert positive podcast or positive things that are going to provide those reaffirmations so that you are in the right growth mindset to start your day. And I love what you're talking about. When you wake up, you're in control. If you don't press snooze, you are in control. But the moment you press snooze, out of control. Ooh, Allison Paige, I appreciate you. Is there anything that you want to leave people with as we sign off?
I mean, honestly, I would want everyone to continue to just be encouraged. I think one thing that I'm learning from myself, but I would want other people to know is, like, acknowledge that times are rough. You don't have to be superhuman to prove anything to anyone. You just need to be intentional and purposeful. And I think there's a lot of things that we talked about today that are key. But if you are not taking care of yourself, getting rest, having that self-awareness, being disciplined, having those intentional connections, all of this kind of doesn't make sense. It's kind of null and void if you're not putting in that work, if you're not setting those boundaries. That's part of what you're saying, that you don't touch the phone till later. That's a boundary.
Right.
So one, just grace upon grace to yourself first. Don't feel shame and asking and not even asking. Don't feel shame in taking the time you need to do all of this stuff and get it together. This is your life. You deserve the best of it. Make everything you want and you dream of, make that happen. And what you can't make happen, be grateful for what all the great stuff that you're doing, and know that someone is always watching you and you are being a blessing to someone. You're a vital part in someone else's story that you don't even know their name. So just be grateful, be gentle, and be encouraged.
I love it. And I know we have a stigma as people of color of acting like there's strength in hiding what you're experiencing. And I would challenge everybody to understand that there's strength in letting people know and getting the help that you need, and really just living in your truth, period. Whatever that is, there's strength in living in your truth.
Yeah.
Woo, everybody. Allison Paige. Y'all go follow her at Page from my book. I love you, girl. Love y'all.
Love you too. Thank you for having me. Love everybody on here. Keep
Always.
pushing forward.
I appreciate it. Love y'all.
All right.